Tonight, the situation in Ukraine intensifies. As the destruction continues and Russian forces approach Kiev, concern grows for those still in the country.
I'm worried about the children there. I've got family there. They've got young children. It's very, very hard.
As thousands flee to the border, here in Scotland, refugees are still living in hotels, waiting for a permanent home months after escaping the Taliban in Afghanistan.
In sport, Rangers dump Borussia Dortmund out of the Europa League to set up a last 16 tie against Red Star Belgrade.
And stay tuned to find out why this train is chugging through a nicely filled baguette. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. After another night of explosions, Russian soldiers are closing in on the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. The Ministry of Defence says the bulk of forces are now 50 kilometres from the city, having opened a new route of advance.
There are reports of sporadic clashes in the northern suburbs. Here, hundreds of protesters gathered in Glasgow and Edinburgh to show solidarity with the Ukrainian people. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie reports.
For a second night, the Ukrainian capital was the target of Russian missile attacks. The light of dawn revealed the destruction. This morning, Russian tanks could be seen a few miles from the centre of Kyiv as Ukrainian soldiers scrambled to defend the city. Thousands of residents have fled, including some Scots living there. In Edinburgh, hundreds of protesters gathered at the Russian consulate once again to show support for Ukraine.
It's heartbreaking. We've been providing assistance to the Ukrainians who were at the front line since 2014. And this was inevitable because of the lack of action by the nuclear powers.
We should be standing united with the international community, thinking about the severest sanctions that can be applied.
It's just a lot of anger and frustration, wanting to do more and wanting the governments to do more.
In Glasgow, a vigil for peace was held as a Ukrainian flag was raised at the city chambers. The country's president has pleaded for more help. NATO has agreed to deploy more troops, although the UK has already ruled out direct military involvement.
We're not going to put British soldiers directly in conflict with Russian soldiers. That would lead to a war across Europe. We are in NATO, and as a result of that, that means NATO needs to reinforce, reassure and contain Russia, but it also means that we have to be very careful there is not an escalation. None of us want a wide war in Europe.
The Prime Minister has promised an investigation after a Russian-owned tanker was allowed to load oil in Shetland, despite sanctions being in place. For Ukrainians living here, thoughts and prayers remain focused on family and friends back home.
They're all scared, very, very scared. And in particular for the young children that are there. You know, the schools are shut, the shops are running out of food.
They just don't know what to expect. I mean, they're expecting the worst, but hoping for that the worst doesn't happen.
We have a good community here. We are connected to each other, and together we are actually deal much better than independently one by one.
As the Russian assault intensifies, Scotland is making a clear show of solidarity in the hope the violence comes to a swift end. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
Hundreds of refugees who fled from Afghanistan after the Taliban's return to power are still living in hotels in Scotland, 6 months on since the militant group's takeover.
As many as 300 Afghans remain in temporary bridging accommodation in different parts of the country as work to resettle them continues. Tonight, there are calls for swift action to rehouse as many people as possible. Louise Hosey reports.
The Rasolis arrived in Scotland last September. They'd fled from Afghanistan after the Taliban's return to power, leaving on one of the last rescue flights out of Kabul. Initially, they came to Glasgow, where their family member Zabidullah was living and working. But while Zabidullah and his wife Tabassum are still in Glasgow, for nearly 5 months the 8 other family members have been living in a hotel nearly 65 miles away in Glenrothes as they wait to be allocated a property by the Home Office. They say while they're extremely grateful to be here, the length of time they've remained in temporary accommodation has made it very hard to settle properly.
There is no update yet, and the family got a bit tension. They have got depression in the hotel, so they just missed their ones in Afghanistan. Some of the family has been stuck there. They are worried about them and difficult situation here.
The family currently face an hour-round walk to get to the nearest mosque or main shop, and for the children to go to school every day. Without the right paperwork and a permanent address, getting a job and a bank account is almost impossible. Sitting in their hotel room for long periods of time has taken an even greater toll mentally as they struggle with the trauma of events in their home country.
I worry about my family being in the hotel and my sister and brother who still have loved ones in Afghanistan. I would love for my family to get out of the hotel and get their own home, but we don't know when that's going to happen. It's been quite a long time.
The Rasolis are not alone. Scotland's 32 councils have all said they would be prepared to resettle Afghan refugees. While many are now in their own homes, a Freedom of Information request by STV News found there are currently 151 Afghan refugees in hotels in Edinburgh and 54 in Fife. Aberdeen Council said there had been 100 plus Afghans in its hotels, but that figure changed on a regular basis. There are now calls for swifter action to provide housing.
They could contribute so much in our society, and they have been held up without any decisions, without any progression. That is so sad to see that.
The Convention of Scottish Local Authorities says hotels are the wrong accommodation for people who have arrived in Scotland having left their homes under difficult circumstances. It says councils are ready, willing and able to help with appropriate settlement. The Home Office says it's working as fast as possible to house everyone and is urging councils who can offer more housing places to do so. For the Rasoli family, the wait goes on.
We definitely want 100% to be in our homes so that we can do work, we can make our own life.
Louise Hosey, STV News.
Other stories across Scotland, and Scotland's COVID status mobile app failed to tell people how their personal information was being used. That's according to the UK data watchdog, which has issued reprimands to both the Scottish Government and the NHS National Services Scotland. Ministers have accepted the data could have been clearer. Mandatory COVID passports will be scrapped on Monday.
A man has been charged in connection with the death of Emma Caldwell in 2005. The 27-year-old's body was found in Woodland in South Lanarkshire 5 weeks after her disappearance. The 49-year-old man who was arrested yesterday remains in custody and is due to appear at Glasgow Sheriff Court on Monday.
And a statue has been unveiled at Pittodrie of the former Aberdeen manager Sir Alex Ferguson. The club's most successful coach attended a ceremony along with players from the club's past. The statue depicts a celebration when the Dons won the title in 1980.
Some people want to go to the moon in their holidays. Some do want to go to the local park. These boys want to go to the moon. They had the desire to be better and better. And that gave me the incentive to work with them. And to understand that, look, there are other clubs want to win trophies. You want to win it. You want to win it more than them.
As the country moves away from COVID restrictions, many of us are back in our offices again or working part of the time from home.
However, research has found that despite the dramatic changes to our ability to work over the lockdowns, just 3 in 10 Scottish jobs are advertised as flexible. Vanessa Taff has more.
Juggling working from home and her role as a mum is a full-time job for Amy. Her employer offers a flexible model of working between her house and their office.
I feel really valued. I never feel that my flexibility is a problem for them. In fact, it's something they really celebrate. And the HR manager said to me recently, we're so proud that our flexible working conditions mean that we were able to employ someone like yourself.
Of the 340,000 jobs advertised across Scotland, just 27% mentioned the ability to work from home, part-time hours and other flexible conditions. However, 70% of employees say they want more flexible options than they currently have. And many said they would be willing to change jobs in order to get that flexibility.
Many businesses still don't realise how popular flexibility is and how many people want it. So they don't necessarily think to say so in a job ad in the way that they would talk about salary or talk about something else.
For this Aberdeen business owner, the pandemic has brought about an adaptable approach to the running of their company.
Flexibility works both ways. So sometimes, people will be required to do meetings outside of working hours. It's good to be able to give that flexibility back as well, if something's happening with the family at home or COVID's still very much with us.
While employment terms and conditions will differ, lawyers say the option to work from home isn't always the perfect solution to managing work-life balance.
Interestingly, we've had a few cases where it has been a negative impact on the employment relationship. We're seeing cases coming through the employment tribunal just now as well, which have arisen as a result of situation during the pandemic. And sometimes, when people were at home, it was quite isolating, their mental health has suffered and they've lost out perhaps on the usual contact they would have with their employer, and that can really have a negative impact on the relationship.
But for Amy, flexible working hours means she feels more fulfilled in her job.
My mental health has been so much better, and I think I'm a better mum as well, because that part of my brain is being used at work, that I'm able to really feel like I'm rewarded in that, and I can focus on being a mum and not resent that in any way, not resent that all I do is look after my kids. So it really is the dream. It's the best of both worlds.
After the biggest shake-up to working patterns in employment history, one thing is for sure, the traditional office-based 9 to 5 is on the way out. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
One of Scotland's most rural fire stations is leading the way for female firefighter recruitment. With only 7% of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Services workforce made up of women, Courtney Cameron has been to one of the only stations across the country where more than a quarter of the team are female.
An early morning call for help. Almost a daily occurrence for these retained firefighters in Campbelltown. Despite having their own full-time jobs, these women are on hand 24 hours a day to assist with emergencies.
Ashley, you're driving. Rachel, Michelle, PA.
Every sort of shout is different, and that's the thing I most enjoy about it, because it's so different and varied.
It's a real buzz, because as soon as that pager goes, you just don't know what you're coming to. You're serving your community, and if it wasn't for the likes of us being here, they wouldn't have a fire service at all.
My granny lived over the back there, and I used to watch all the men doing the drills at night time, and I've always found it fascinating.
Ashley is 23 and is the youngest fire appliance driver in Scotland.
It was in 2019 I did my driving. There was a shortage of drivers for the actual Campbelltown station, so I do get quite a funny look sometimes, as if, oh, it's a woman driving that. But it's something that doesn't really bother me.
Only 7% of Scotland's firefighters are women. This station in Campbelltown is the only one across the country that can crew a full fire appliance with females. The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service is now providing more resources to encourage women to join.
We are very keen to try and encourage more women to join the fire service in their operational roles. We've already had a number of positive action events. That's an opportunity for females to dial in and find out more about the service and how it might suit them. You see the images of a big muscly firefighter going up the ladder and rescuing the damsel in distress, but actually there's an awful lot more to the role of a firefighter.
It's great to see people with different backgrounds coming into the fire service. Everyone brings their own personal skills. Every person's different and has different qualities, and they just contribute to the group here we have.
These firefighters hope it won't be long before there are more stations across the country that look like theirs. Courtney Cameron, STV News, Campbelltown.
To the weekend weather now. Here's Sean.
the outlook for the day is calm and settled. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Well, thank goodness today it's been an awful lot quieter. How great to have a day without a weather warning. Now, over the next couple of days, we will see some windier weather at times, especially across the northwest. But then look at this. My goodness, what's that? An H on the map, high pressure. It's been a long, long time since we've had one of those. So the weather should be settling down nicely with more days like today. A lot of drier and sunnier weather as we head through the middle part of next week. Now, there'll be a lot of cloud around during the weekend. That's the case tonight. Shower outbreaks of rain moving east, but look at the overnight temperatures. Very mild, 7 to 9 degrees Celsius. So very mild, certainly compared to the last couple of nights. So no worries with frost and ice as we head into tomorrow morning. A very mild start to the day, albeit rather cloudy, and there will be some showers at times tomorrow, but I expect because we're between two weather fronts, the main front out to the west of us, the northeast, there should still be quite a lot of dry weather, and because we'll have a strong wind, particularly so along the west coast and the islands, that'll be churning the cloud up a wee bit, so the clouds should break at times, give us some brighter spells, so hopefully a little bit of sunshine breaking through, especially into the afternoon. Then on Sunday, I expect we'll see a lot of cloud from many parts, but because we hang on to that strong southerly through the central belt, we'll see the best of any brighter spells, some outbreaks of rain at times across Ayrshire and Argyll. Into the start of March, I'm expecting the weather at least to start settling down, thank goodness, and also in the next 2 weeks, believe it or not, we gain about an hour of daylight. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Now, in a world first, tonight, a film of Jekyll and Hyde is going to be simultaneously created and performed in front of a live audience.
Well, those lucky enough to have secured tickets will get to experience the filming of the classic at the Leith Theatre ahead of its cinema release across the UK on Sunday. Well, Polly Bartlett went down as the final preparations were being put in place.
This is a live film set built within the foyer of an old Edinburgh theatre.
Massive juggernaut.
Tonight and throughout the weekend, a film version of Jekyll and Hyde will be created in front of the cameras and in front of an audience.
Well, we're here in Leith Theatre, which is where the whole project kind of takes place, and we're moving from set to set and trying to make a film, I suppose you could say film hybrid theatre, but in my mind it really is a film. The crew are there who are having to set up all these different cameras, and while they're doing that, the camera crew that we just came from filming that scene has to rush over to the next set so they can do that. So they're kind of hopping over each other, so there's pressure everywhere.
In this unique retelling of the famous story, the audience will step into a live film set and witness the drama unfolding on screen and in the historic rooms and corridors of the Leith Theatre.
I do have to say that the fact that it's in Leith and it's in Leith Theatre, and that has a bit of a draw because I grew up in Edinburgh, so yeah, wanting to do something here sounded really exciting as well.
3, 2, 1, action.
What is filmed this weekend will be released in cinemas across the UK. The project putting the theatre back on the map after a number of difficult years. The building survived being bombed in the Second World War and was saved from being sold off by the council years later. After finally reopening in 2017, the pandemic struck. So this performance of Jekyll and Hyde marks its return as a working venue.
This production is just so groundbreaking, and it's a platform to showcase this building. Leith Theatre has its own Jekyll and Hyde story, and so it feels very fitting. And the audiences that are going to see it, and they're going to be able to see that it was all shot in the one building. It's just something you can't dream of, I think, as a chief executive, in terms of taking your venue out to the people.
I pledge to rid this city of the evil that poisons it.
If you weren't lucky enough to get a ticket to the live show, the spooky story will open in cinemas on Sunday. Polly Bartlett, STV News.
And finally from us, some of the country's top train set builders are displaying their work in Glasgow this weekend.
People have travelled from across the UK to be a part of the Model Rail Scotland exhibition. It opened today at the SEC and closes on Sunday. Susan Ripple reports.
Your eyes aren't deceiving you. This train is travelling upside down.
one of the main attractions at this year's model rail exhibition.
You put a couple of magnets on and then just hold it and get a feel for whether it needs more, and just gradually adding them until you're happy that not just that the locomotive is supported, but it's got to be balanced front to back so that it doesn't become unsteady and then fall off.
And the attention to detail is incredible. This set of Blair Athol first appeared at the exhibition in 1989.
The reason for building was many family holidays in Blair Athol. My dad produced a model of the signal box, and we thought, well, we could do better than this, we could do the whole thing. But it's nice to take it out and for people to get to see it, because it is a big undertaking to bring something like this to a show.
And of course, it's the accessories that really bring the scenes to life. The wire powering these lights is the size of a piece of thread.
And when it comes to size, it doesn't get more tiny than this. This is the smallest running model railway in the world. So small, in fact, it fits inside a baguette. And it took the team around 30 hours to put together.
To allow for more space, there are fewer stands than normal, but still plenty for people to see.
You can tell by everybody that's here that everybody's just happy to be here and back in this sort of environment again.
You can get all your magazines and all the stuff online and everything like that, but it's not the same as coming and actually seeing it and getting to talk to people and stuff like that as well.
The last model show I was at was 2 years ago here, and it's just really good to be able to see all the models, all the people that we regularly see, and it's a nice turnout.
And there's nothing quite like seeing these miniature marvels up close and in person. Susan Ripple, STV News, Glasgow.
You know, I'd say that wee train was chewing through that baguette, John, don't you think?
That was really cheesy. Cheesy baguette, maybe. Right, it's time we went home. Time we went home. That's enough. Thank you all for watching. Have a good weekend. Good night.
See you later. Bye-bye.